Alrighty, so let's talk about doing laundry. So, laundry, Monday activity. It's one of the most labor-intensive jobs of a woman. So you want to do it the first day of the week, or some people do it a little bit later, but it was standardized in the Victorian era to do it on Mondays. So what you would do is you would put all your clothes that you're going to wash in a pot, preferably copper. You could use tin, you could use wood, whatever you have, preferably copper. And you would just leave it there overnight. And you want to do as much pre-treating that you can for your stains. So take out different techniques to get out different stains. But one of the ways that you would use for whites is chamber lye. So this here is chamber lye. So chamber lye is actually stale urine. So you collect urine from chamber pots in the morning, and you would leave it out for a couple days, a week, whatever, and it would basically turn into ammonia. And so what that ammonia does is it basically whitens your clothes. It works like bleach. So you leave your stuff soaking overnight, and then the next morning you'd wake up, put a fire underneath your soaking clothes, bring it to a boil maybe. You don't want to go too much of a boil because there is the possibility that you could rot your linens, which is not what you would want to do. So then you would bring all your stuff into another pot of water. In that pot, you would have your soap, or if you were doing soap, so you'd have your soap in there with your water. And so you could either do a soft lye soap, so using lye and using animal fat to make a very soft lye soap, and water. So you want to add that salt to stiffen the soap, or you could just do bucking, which is just pouring water over ashes to lye it. But the way we're going to talk about it is you have your stuff in a bucket of water with your soft soap dissolved in it. So what you would do, you would use this here, which is called a poser. In the 19th century, it's actually called a dolly, or in America, I think it was called a plunger. And they all look very different. This is more of a poser because it's a little bit before this time. So what you would do is you would essentially do this to all your clothes to aggravate it. Get all that soap and clothes and stuff mixed in. So then you would take your clothes out one at a time. You would put them on a flat surface, like this table here, or a rock if you're doing this by the river, or just another board, whatever you have. And what you would do is you would do this kneading motion to work all that soap through. If this garment's not too delicate, you could also use this, which is called a beetle. It's essentially just a stick with a flat surface on it, and you could use that to beat the soap through your clothes to make it even cleaner. So, a lot of people, when they think of doing laundry the old-fashioned way, they think of a washboard. So washboards weren't actually brought into America until the 1830s, first patented in 1833. But they weren't actually used all that often because washboards were really extremely rough on clothes. So you would want to not really use it that often because you would want to preserve your clothes as much as possible because fabric was such a valuable resource. So you'd use it if you have something really tough linen, but you can use it, just not as much as one thinks you would use it. Later in the century, they tried to use glass, but those weren't the best because they'd break. Another way that you could clean off a really tough stain is taking your hard lye soap, so that has salt in it, and you could scrub at it like that as well. But there's a whole bunch of other stain remover techniques depending on what the type of stain is. So after you have your nice clean clothes, you put it in another bath that has starch and a bluing agent in it. So a bluing agent was basically used to trick the eye, and what that bluing agent did is it gave your white clothes a little bit of a blue tint, so which counteracts the yellow. So as you know, as white clothes age, they turn yellow. So giving it that little blue tint just tricks your eye. So the first blue was called smalt, and then also in this period they had indigo, but indigo was one, kind of expensive, especially over in this area, and two, since it's a dye, you do have the possibility of dyeing your clothes. But the first stuff, smalt, is made out of crushed cobalt glass. And then as the century progressed, with artificial dyes, there's other types of bluing agents as well. And bluing agents do actually still exist today. So you could blue your clothes if you'd like. So after you have your nice washed and blued and starched clothes, you would put them outside. So since we're talking about doing whites, you would actually want to put them outside on grass in the sunlight. A lot of villages would have a drying lawn area where it's just a patch of grass that everyone would just use to dry their clothes. So putting it over on the grass instead of on a clothesline would actually help bleach it more, so it would get bleached from the sun, and then also with the process of photosynthesis with the grass will bleach the underside as well. So it's a pretty cool process. So you'd put your whites out there, you'd put your colors on a clothesline, you know, whatever. So then that is how you do laundry. The next day, Tuesday, ironing day. Do I still have time? Yes. So the next day you would iron. So ironing also a very long, tedious process, so that's why you starch it. So it'd be easier to iron all your clothes. So irons, these guys, these are called sad irons. It's actually Old English for solid, and that name just continued on, and these were called sad irons, also because it's sad to iron. So these things you would want to keep clean and polished and just very nice because you don't want to mess up your clothes. And it's also better to have more than one iron because obviously these don't have electricity. So one you would have over your fire, the other one you would be using, and then you could switch them out as they cool down. There's also no way to tell the temperature of your iron. You just have to know. Just from experience, you would figure out the correct temperature so you wouldn't accidentally burn your clothes, because that wouldn't be good. And also another fun thing about irons is these have metal handles. So you would also have to grab these with a thick rag. A little bit later, in about I think the 1870s, somebody invented these sort of irons, which don't have a handle on it. They don't really look like a conventional iron. But these would have a wooden handle that you would just hold in your hand, and these would be sitting over the fire or on the stove, and you just connect your handle and go about your ironing. There's other irons that exist that you would put in coals, and you could do it like that. But that is how you iron.